Hey guys, I'm back with another video and this is going to be the next part of our grocery e-commerce app using .NET MAUI. So before continuing on this one, I would recommend you all to check out all the previous parts. I'm going to drop the links in the description box, so please do check those out before continuing on this one. So far we have these categories list, offers, and everything is kind of hard coded. So next thing we are going to do is to create an API project for this .NET Core API, and then we'll use that to have this data. So I'm creating a new project, ASP.NET Core Web API, and let's have the name as .api project. Next, .NET 7, everything is fine. And the API is here. Cool. So in this API, first thing we need our database support. So we are going to use EF Core. I will use SQL. You could use any database provider you want, which Entity Framework has support for. So for this, we need Entity Framework 4, Entity Framework 4. Need EF Core relational SQL Server. So I am going to install SQL Server only. It will automatically install all others because it has dependency of those three. Okay, I accept. And it did not work. I am having bad internet today. Let's retry. It's done, and we need tools as well. Microsoft Entity Framework course tools. So we need this running our migrations. So this is also done. So we are done with the NuGet packages. Now next thing we need to add our entities. So for adding entities, I'm using the same project .api and I'm creating a data folder, but you could have another library project as well. So the structure is up to you. And in this data, I'm going to create one more folder for entities, and here I'll add the entities. So first, let me have user. This is going to be the first entity. We'll have ID, first name, last name. We could have both, but for now I'll use simply name, and email, mobile, and let's have role as well. So in order to use role, we need to have a role entity where we'll have a role ID and role name. And in this, we'll use this role ID, short role ID, and we'll add a navigation property here with this role. We'll call it role only. We'll make it virtual to allow lazy loading. Okay, and after this, we'll have we should not have plain password, but for now I am going to use this plain password. Okay, so after this we need categories. So we can use this category entity. Here we'll use this category. We don't need this. Dot ID name, credit, everything is fine. We don't need this property here. After category, we need product. Let's copy this and we'll have it here, product. And in here, let's not have it like this. We'll use public category. Here comes the thing. One product can be a part of multiple categories. Can this be a scenario? The tomato, can we add it in fruits and vegetable both? I don't know. For now, let's have single category only. We'll think about it later. So category, make it virtual. After that, we'll have order. Let me copy this. Long ID items. We don't need these items like this. Date, total amount. That order status. Okay, now we need to have that order status enum to be used here as well. So what we should do, we should create another project which will be shared between these two API and UI projects, mobile projects, and we'll have the common data types in that. Common types, and this should be a class library project. And we'll name it, let's say, shared at common share.7, and we should be good. Now we should cut this enumerations from here and add this to this project. Order status, and we should fix namespace as the share.enumerations. Remove this. Okay, and now we need to fix the order in our MAUI project. So we need to add reference of that project here. Dependencies, add project reference and shared. Same thing we'll do for API project. We'll add dependency of the shared project. Share and fine. Okay, now we need to fix the namespaces here. So namespace. Okay, cool. And now back to entities, order status, we can modify this. Color, we will be using this color, yes. Oh, okay, we can remove this actually. This will be totally IUI thing. We don't need this, fine. Okay, after order, this order will have the items. So for that, let's create one more public class order item. This will be similar to cart item. Let me copy these, paste, And here we'll have a product ID, product name, price, order item, sorry, ID, and after that we should have linking between these two. So we'll have a long of order ID. And when we have order ID, we will be having a virtual property of order virtual, and then we don't need these. We need quantity here, public decimal quantity, and then amount. We can have this column if we want, and if we don't, then we can skip it and we can have this on UI only. Okay, let's have it here. And this order, it will have a collection of these order items. Order item, order items. Fine. Product ID. So we'll have one more property here for product, product, and virtual. Fine. We have order item, we have order, we have product, category, offer is missing. So let's add offer as well. Copy, come here, have this offer. We can remove this, or we can use this uh, for seeding our data. But for now, let's remove this, and we can remove this constructor as well. And this bg color, let's have it string. We'll convert this hex string for the mobile application, for the UI only. Okay, offer is also here. Next, what we need? We need, when user is making any order, we'll need user's address as well. So here we'll have user has int ID. Yes. We will have long address ID. Then we'll have integer user ID. So we'll have user property here, navigation property, public virtual user. After user ID, let's have string address 1, and then we'll have, let's say, nullable address 2 part, address line 1 and address line 2, something like that. Then we'll have string. We could have city, state, and other things, but for the simplicity, I'm not using all those. Here I'll use zip code. And after that, I'll have a boolean flag which will say, is this address a primary? So is primary. And then we could have named addresses as well. So we can have two addresses, one for let's say home and one for office, something like that. And let's have this also as nullable. So I think we are good. And this address, for this user, we can have a list of addresses. Here we'll say I collection of address addresses and virtual. Okay, so I think we are done with all these. We might add other entities on the way because right now I can think of only these things. So we'll see if we need other entities as well, we'll add those later. Cool. Now next thing is we need to add a DB context. So for that, first let's move the classes to their separate files. So move type to role.cs, category.cs, product.cs, order.cs, order item.cs, offer.cs, address. Okay, cool. Now next thing, outside of these entities, let's in the data folder only, let's create a DB context and we'll name it, let's call it data context only, data context, and we need to derive it from DB context, which will come from Microsoft Entity Framework core. Let's add the constructor DB context options of data context, and okay. Now we need to add all those entities which we have added as DB set properties. So first DB set address, and let me copy this address. Then we have category. After category we have offer, then we have order, then we have order item, then we have product, that we have role, and then we have user. Okay, fine. Let's add the names, categories, offers, orders, order items, products, roles, and users. Okay, this is fine. Now let's add the data annotation validations. I love data annotations, but if you don't like the data annotations and you like Fluent API, you can use Fluent API by overriding on model creating. You can have your Fluent API builder here, but I'll use data annotations only. So the key, which is explicitly I add this key. So this address line 1, this is required, and let's say max length will be 100 or maybe 150. Address 2, this is not required, but max length, it should not be more than 150 characters. Then zip, it is required, and max length is 6 only. Or let's have, okay, max length is 6. Name, max length 15 is primary virtual user, and we are good. Let's have the table variable, table attribute as well. In the name, we'll use the same name, address, and fine. Category, table, name of category. It is default, but if we miss that, sometimes it, not sometimes, it is the default behavior. It uses the pluralized names. So if we explicitly set this, then it would be easier to migrate to another database. Although that is a very rare thing. We rarely migrate our database, but I like to have these explicit. This is going to be our key. and then category name, this is required, and max length 20, then image which is required, and max length 150. It could be URL, not could be, it will be URL. Parent ID and then credit, it is not required, and max length, it could also be around 150 characters, not more than that. Cool. Offer, table, name of offer. Let me add these offline. I missed a unique key in this offer, so let's have this as well. Public int ID, and we also need to have a boolean flag which will say is active. This is not ideal and this will not work in real projects, we could say, because I'm just using this offer just for showing it on the UI. We are not going to add the functionality because the offer part, this coupon part, it again is a very broad concept and it requires a lot of effort at various points. But we need to have the active status, we need to have the conditions that when this offer will be started, till when it will be applicable, what kind of items it can apply to. Then we can have, let's say, it cannot be applied more than 2 times, it cannot be applied if the order amount is less than a certain amount. So there are so many conditions for offers. So this is, and then when we validate the coupons, the offers basically, then also it requires a huge amount of business logic and design patterns. Basically we could use maybe visitor specification patterns to get the actual status, if this offer is going to be applied or not. If it is going to be applied, then what will be the, let's say, then we can have flat offers. For flat discount we can have percentage discount. So there are so many things, so I'm not going to cover this section in this video. If you want something like this to understand the concept, so do let me know in the comments. I will plan a dedicated video for this where we can have different kinds of offers, discounts and coupons, and then I can show you how we can think about the business logic to apply those on the card items and on the orders basically. So I can create videos, a separate video on that. Okay, so back to code. So here I'm just going to use this is active flag. So when the coupon will not, we'll simply use this to show the offer on the UI, if that is applicable or not. That's all we are going to use it. Okay, so I was adding the attributes, these data annotation attributes. So I'll do this. In order entity, I missed the user ID. We are going to have a user ID for this. User ID, because to which order this user, this order belongs to which user, that we need to have here. So we'll use public user, then we'll have virtual on both of these. Fine. Okay, so I have added data annotations to all the entities. Now next thing is we need some seeding data. So in order to have the seeding data, we can have multiple approaches. Some approaches are good, some bad, and sometimes it's just a matter of perspective of point of view. For now, what I am going to do, I am going to have the seeding data as a part of the entity itself. So for example, for this user, I'm going to have a static method here, public static enumerable, and user, let's say get, or let's say seed data or get initial users, something like that. Get initial users. And from here, I'll simply return a list of users. I'm going to have one admin user only. Before admin user, let's go to role and we'll have public static uh, internal static enumerable because we are not exposing it to the public, so it should be inside this only. We will use this in our data context. That is the only place we are going to use these methods. So enumerable of role get initial roles, and from here we return a list of roles. First item, new role with ID 1 and a name, let's say admin. Then the next item, new role, ID 2 and the name, let's have it customer. Cool. Same thing. Now we need to have this user ID, this admin user ID and admin user role. We need to have these at multiple places. So one thing, this is again kind of project to project or requirement basis thing. In our particular case we have only these two roles, so we could have had these hard coded. For now also I'm going to have it kind of hard coded, but these as a let's say as constants basically. So for that, and these constants are going to be used inside this API project only. So I'm going to add a new folder in the API. I'll call these constants, and here I'll create a new class and I'll say database constants, and here I'll have public static class roles to make it kind of organized. Here I'll say public static class admin. And then here I'll have public const and ID, short ID 1, and then name, string, name, admin. And let me copy this. And this is for customer. ID is 2 and the name is customer. So I'm going to use this database constants class public static class find. So when I'm seeding this data, instead of having these directly here, I'll use this database constants dot roles dot admin dot id. And same thing here, this time roles dot admin dot name. And I'll use similar thing here, just change admin with customer. Fine. So we are good with the roles. Now let's go to users. Users, I'll have simply one admin user. So for that, let's start from one ID 1, then name. Let me have my name only, Abhay Prince. Then email, abhayprince@outlook.com. Then comes mobile number. After that, I have password. Let's have it 123456, and the mobile number 1234567890. Okay, after password, I have role IT and I am making it admin. So I'm going to use the same database constants approach. So database constants dot roles dot admin dot ID. Fine. Initial users, initial roles, and now let's see this in the database data context. After this, now also we can have directly here, we can have a one partial method, we can have a partial class for seeding only. So it's up to us how we are doing this. So for me, let me have private, a static void, and we'll say seed data. Okay, I'll have this model builder here, model builder, and here I'll simply start start adding the seed data. If we have so many entities, in that case this approach is not good. So we'll say model builder dot entity, and we had roles. So after role we have has data method, and in has data we can get this thing, get initial roles, and we are good. If we have thousands of entities, then we will need to write these line thousands times. So in that case, there could be another approach. We can have one interface and the implementation there for the seeding data. Then we can simply use reflection here, and then we can have it slightly with smaller amount of code. We can generate seed data for all the entities what we want. Okay, and now after roles we had data for user. So we'll say user dot get initial users. We added for these two only, right? We'll follow the same approach for others as well. For now we have this only, and from here we'll call this seed data with the ref model builder. This model builder, it is actually a reference type, so we don't need to pass this ref. But what I generally follow, if I am going to modify this, then I try to explicitly pass ref to make the intent clear that I am modifying this model builder. But it's up to you. We can remove this ref and it would behave the same. Okay, so we have this, everything is fine. Now next thing we need to, I'll add seeding data for others as well later, but for now let's have the migrations. So but before migrations, let's add the connection string. So I'll add this in connection string section only. Connection strings here, let's say grocery, and we can have our connection string here. Encrypt false. You don't need to have this encrypt false because this is not secure, but for local I'm using this. Okay, so we have this connection string. Now this grocery, let's have this key as well in database context, constants. So here I'll say public class, no, let's say directly public cons string connection string grocery connection string key, grocery connection string key. Fine. Now next thing we need to go to program.cs, and here we'll add our data context. So for that we'll have builder.services.add db context, and we'll add the type of our db context, which is data context, and in here we have options, and in these options we'll use options dot use SQL Server from Entity Framework core, and in here we'll use the this overload. So we have connection string first. So we need to get the connection string. We can get that from builder dot configuration dot get connection string. And now we need to pass the connection string key name. So that we can get from database constants dot grocery connection string key. And our data context is ready. Next thing is, let's add the migrations now. So for that, let's open package manager console, and we'll say add migration, and we'll say initial migration. The name is up to you. Much time. Okay, I got it. I'm doing it wrong because the default project, it is, yeah, this MAUI project. We need to switch this to API, then run migration. Startup project. Okay. Let me change this to startup. Set as startup project, and fine. Build started, build succeeded, and now we'll have our, okay, these warnings are related to the decimal type. I have not set the precision and scaling, but we are good for now. The only thing I missed, it added migrations on the root, but I needed these in data folder, so we can do that as well. So let me remove this. Package manager console, clear, add migration, and then we can have the output folder. We need this in data, then migrations. So now we will be having this in data, then migration. We have these migrations here. Now we have our migrations. Now we need to update our database. For that, basically we need to run the migrations on our database. So for now, we have this local SQL database. Update database is going to run all these things on my database. And everything should run fine. Yes. Okay, so I have my database up and running. Everything is fine from this side. The only missing thing is we need to seed the categories, offers, and the seeding data I'm going to get it from the mobile MAUI project, because we added that data here, right? In, I think, this category service. Where is the category service? Category service here. We added this data. I'm going to add this in the database, and then I had offers data in this offers model. So I have this, and then I think we will remove the types which don't have anything related to the, let's say, that view model, observable property, observable object. If we are not having those, then we'll move those types to the shared project, because we are going to use those at both the places. Or maybe we can have some DTU kind of thing. We'll think about this. So next thing, I am going to add seeding data for category and offer. and then I'll try to have something for product as well. And for this video, I think that's all. It was a very long video because we had to design a database, add entities, add DB context, run the migrations, everything we did in this part. Then in next part, we will start creating controllers and consuming the API from our mobile UI. So please like this video if you like my content, share this video, subscribe my channel, and I'll be back soon with the next part. Till then, bye bye.